Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. Look, we return for a really unique, strange episode of Last Word on Spurs where, look, I think many know it is maybe bigger than just a game in terms of the consequences and the outcome of it. If you are with us for the first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on X. We're on Instagram, we are on Facebook too, and we return on the back of Manchester City beating Tottenham Hotspur by 2-0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It means for Man City, they are 2 points clear of Arsenal going into the final day of the Premier League season. And for Spurs, it does mean that their quest to reach the Champions League comes to an end. They will play Europa League football. And look, at this point, congratulations to Aston Villa. A really bizarre evening, I've got to say. For many that listen and watch Last Word on Spurs, look, I'm not going to try and dress it up and get away from it. I think that was probably, for me, and I'll ask the guys, one of the most uncomfortable watches of football I think I've ever had in my lifetime. Just a really weird watch. And I think for many out there, they couldn't celebrate Tottenham losing. But at the same time, I think there was just that feeling around us maybe of, to some degree, can I use that word, relief? I don't know. Let's ask the guys first. We'll get into it. Let's go to you, TJ. Lovely to have you back on Last One on Spurs. We'll come on to the game. But what was it like being a Spurs fan for you going into this game?
My goodness, what's it like being a Spurs fan? I think probably all of us can answer that. I mean,
yeah,
goodness me. I mean, certainly mixed emotions, right? I'm not happy at a loss, but I think, Rick, we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and Russ, I think we were chatting as well, because I've seen you recently, Marlon. I've not seen you, for a few episodes now, but really, I was at a place of acceptance that our season was kind of done anyway. It had run aground really, and where we've ended up, I'm totally happy with, and I think that where we are is where we deserve to be. I do think we'll win in Sheffield on Sunday, and so we'll finish in 5th. We were languishing in 8th with no European football at all, with a really horrible fug of negativity and concern, justifiably, after a really precarious couple of years. Was it 6 managers? Is that what you were saying last time, Russ? 6 managers since Poch, right? Is that right, mate?
That's right.
Yeah, you're nodding away. Yeah. And so we have a semblance of stability. We certainly have a new identity. We certainly have a philosophy. I was talking to one of the guys, actually, one of the footballers that does the commentary over here. I was out on Sunday night, and I won't say who it was, but I saw one of the guys who's an ex-pro who does the commentary over here on NBC. And I had a conversation with him, and he said, listen, man, Manchester United would bite your hand off for Ange, and would bite your hand off to have the season that you've had. And I concurred with him entirely. So I'm never happy to lose a game, but I think we went about our business with great integrity and with some vim and vigor, and we showed some bright sparks. So I'm generally happy with where we are, and of course, beyond delighted to have destroyed the chances of that awful lot from down the street. I'm jubilant, absolutely just incandescent with joy.
Do you know what? It's a really difficult take on this show, because I know the reality is that we want to make it as watchable and accessible as possible. But I know that we may offend some, because ultimately, look, the integrity of it is we're Tottenham fans. We want Tottenham to win. But as I've said, I think this game in particular, Russ, was going to make people really struggle to come to terms with what they actually genuinely want. When I've got to say, for some, look, they surround themselves with Arsenal fans. I mean, look, my friends are all Arsenal. It has been a difficult last 8-9 months, being brutally honest with you, because of the nature of how good they've been. I think we can definitely say that. We can't get away from that. So, I mean, is this the most bizarrest game to have ever gone into, given the nature of the feeling around the stadium? And we will come on to that, because there was a real bizarre feeling in and around that stadium, wasn't there, in that game?
Yeah, there appeared to be. I mean, hands up, I'm a Spurs fan that once the ball moves from the centre spot, irrespective, I want us to win. Having said that, given the implications, and of course, the other lot down the road, who incidentally, for the avoidance of doubt, the thing I said, Rick, that, they were going to support a team actually from North London. 1886, Arsenal formed and played at Woolwich Arsenal, the Royal Oak. So you can't change history. It's a fact. But they have been north of the river for 100 years. But that doesn't matter. We've been here longer. And look, am I devastated that we've been beaten by possibly the best team, apart from a bit of bad luck in the Champions League in Europe or maybe the world? No, I thought there was a lot of glimmers of hope for next season. There was also some very obvious sore thumbs, like we need a striker. We all know that. And I had the added pleasure of having a gooner on the sofa next to me, which made it special. And so who's now gone to bed in a bit of a mood. But, you know, you're right, Rick, what you say. They have been extremely good this season. And there's a cigarette paper between them and Manchester City. And whether we like it or not, and this is not a We Love Arsenal session, they're going to be in the conversation next season. The question is, how can we get in the conversation? And
yeah, I think,
you know,
I think that's so spot on.
I think it's a valid point to make. And it was great to see Mikey Moore come on, 16 years old, youngest ever Tottenham debutant. I'm sure we'll come on to him a little bit later on. I thought the first half we played some really, really good football. And City were worried, but, you know, they're a machine and they get over the line. And that's what the big teams do. We all know that. So, you know, for me personally, don't like losing. I mean, it is a concern, Rick, and everybody else. We've lost 5 out of 6 games. I mean, that is appalling form. You know, it's relegation form. It's form where the fan base said, what's the manager doing? You know, all these questions. But overall, for the season, we're 5th. And it's better than last season, as TJ quite rightly said, and a lot of our viewers and listeners think. And we've got to push on. Now we know where the push has got to come. And it's from the top. And let's see how far they're prepared to push.
It's really weird. I mean, Marlon, bringing you in, I feel this is the most positive I've been in months, because in that game, I mean, there was times where Spurs in that first half did play ever so well. I mean, there was definitive periods where they really were pushing City back. And you know what? Again, we know it's a huge night in the title race. Of course, City have gone over to those 2 points clear. Obviously, Sonny's missed chance at the end was decisive. We joked off air. I mean, the implications of Sonny scoring at that moment, what that would have meant for Tottenham and his legacy, dare I say it. I mean, Marlon, what's your takeaway from that game? How do you feel about it?
Well, I was in two minds. It took me right back to 1999 again, when I was a 15-year-old boy, and it was that last game of the season. And I remember saying, I don't ever want to feel like this again. And tonight, it just took me through all the emotions again. The only thing I'll say about it is, I looked at the end and I'm slightly gutted that we actually didn't win. In my head, through the whole week, I was like, you know what? There's a chance if we win, Everton get a result on Sunday and Villa lose to Palace. That was still going through my head, but I know football don't work like that, right? It's not as simple as that. But at the end of the day, I think all the problems that we have, like you've seen all season with Spurs, all laid out in that second half. Kulusevski missing chances, some been off form, and like Dragushin not playing any minutes up until today. You kind of have to look at Ange and go, why not? We've conceded so many goals, but how good was he tonight? Right? He said, like, he had one bad game against Fulham, and that's it. You know, you've got to trust the players in front of you. So for me, I can see there's a lot of positives that come out of it, but there's a lot of questions as well for next season. So I'm just looking at it going, if you look at it on paper, we didn't play with a striker tonight. You can't have Sarr up front and expecting Spurs to win a game. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Even if we played against Burnley, we wouldn't have won that game with Sarr up top. So there's a lot of things that need to be sorted in the summer. Like you guys say, if we want to join that conversation next season of being in a title race, there's so many little issues that we saw tonight in that game where we go, you know what, let's see what we can build on next season. But how I'm feeling right now, I'm not even too sure. I think once the morning hits and I go on social media and I see all the Arsenal fans and all going, oh, we're West Ham, we're West Ham, we're West Ham, it'll hit me and go, oh, we did our bit.
Yeah, it's a really weird, time to record. Obviously, we record bang on the whistle, so emotions are always high. And look, we're going to bring to you Ange's comments very, very shortly that he admitted after the game, really weird atmosphere in amongst the Spurs Stadium. It was always going to be. Look, we always said it was going to be a very, very weird evening in store for everybody. But George, CJ, coming over to you, what I think it did actually show, and I can't believe actually I'm saying this at this point, that I felt with Tottenham, it showed to the world with Ange that he does have a plan B. We saw it there, I think, in the first half, that he could set up a team to be quite solid defensively, who pushed City all the way, to be honest, to them. And they absolutely, had their chances to take something from that game. Bentancur, Kulusevski, Heung-min Son. Is that just a glimpse of the future there, that if Spurs can get some decent players in decent areas, we can be a real force under Ange?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think the whole Ange doesn't have a plan B. I mean, I never subscribed to that anyway. We discussed a couple of shows ago that most of us on this program, and I think the majority of fans as well, are accepting that it's Ange's first season. And so he's not going to come in and wave a magic wand and fix everything immediately. And so I just think he set us up a bit more pragmatically today. It wasn't necessarily a plan B. He's a football manager. He's a football manager of vast experience. And again, people saying, well, coaching in Japan and in Australia and in Scotland is not the same as the Premier League. And of course it isn't. However, he's plied his trade and learned amongst the very best. Pep Guardiola, arguably the greatest football manager of all time. And so to Russ's point, to your point, Rick, and to Marlon's point, we're all feeling a little bit discombobulated, I think, today. And also, always at the end of a football season, there is an enormous expulsion of emotion anyway. We invest so much in our team. And so when it comes to the end, one exhales and it's like, and you kind of have a look at where we are. I think you'd be extremely harsh to critique these boys and our coaching staff having finished in fifth. And so his plan B, was it a plan B? I just think he's like, okay, let me set up with what I have. We've got a lot of players missing. Let me do my best. The only really frustrating thing for me is we were so good today with Sarr up top and this funny shape. Why on earth didn't we do that against West Ham and Fulham and twice at Wolves? Like, why don't you come out and play like that every single time? That I cannot understand. I can never excuse, for me, what looks like a lack of motivation or a lack of effort. I've said it a million times on this program. I've said it a million times through my life. That is a decision that you make. It's got nothing to do with your physical ability. That is all mental and heart. You make a decision that I will give nothing away today. I will show my all. I will give 110%. And then the chips, where they lay is where they lay. And so that's the only thing that I would really like to see us do with a bit more consistency moving forward.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. What I'll just say to you, I'm not sure if guys picking up in it here, we're losing you in and out a little bit in terms of the pixelation. So if you want to come in and come back out, we can hear you, but we can't see you. So we'll let you come in and come back out. No problem at all. We'll go to Russ if we can. I mean, Russ, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I think going into the game, I think many Spurs fans weren't really expecting too much from the night itself. But, Spurs were pretty good. A decent new system that Ange seemed to deploy in that first half. They worked really hard. They made it difficult for City. And I'll say it again, on another day, they could have actually got something from there. And I think just back to what TJ was saying there, if they played like that a few months ago, then I tell you what, Spurs would be definitely in the conversation on the final day to have Champions League, maybe destiny in their own hands. And that'll be the frustration. Why did they play against Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool? Can you put your fingers on why we saw it tonight and not against those teams? Is it a case with Spurs, the pressure was off?
Could have been that. I think eyes of the world on them. They're not tribal like we are. They're professionals. And I think that counts for a lot with players of all teams. And even though it was a very, very unusual situation that we could have, helped that team, Arsenal, win the Premier League, it's not to be unless something extraordinary happens at the weekend. And in this game, anything could happen, but it's probably not going to. And, they couldn't, for example, blame us, could they? For, you know, Tottenham have stopped us winning the Premier League. Losing to Aston Villa at home stopped you winning the Premier League, which was a cock-up. So it's nothing to do with us, but it was a very, very uncomfortable night. I think Ange, you know, a bit of the Celtic passion has rubbed off on him, quite rightly. And I think he probably found it a little bit bemusing. And in the run-up to the game, Rick, he was quite strong, wasn't he, on the fact that, you know, how can anybody want their team to lose? I personally think it is a bit extreme, wanting your team to lose. But I would imagine most of the fan base tonight are either relieved about the result, or they're realistic about the result, that we actually played a really good team in Man City. And, you know, I still go back to what I said at the start of the show. There was enough glimmers of hope, and Ange being slightly more pragmatic. And you could just see, with 3 or 4 key players in there, including a centre forward, which is an absolute priority now, and a number 6, I think, certainly, how we could be so dangerous. And it is not bemusing for me that we haven't managed to play good football in a lot of these games where we perform so badly, because we actually don't have the full toolkit to do the job. And at the beginning of the season, you know, we were doing really well. And I hate to go back to them. They didn't have a centre forward, but look at all the players in all sorts of positions who scored goals for them. Ours didn't. You know, that's the harsh reality. And I'm sure goals is something he's going to be looking at, apart from not conceding them as well, which we've been shocking at. I mean, to lose 5 out of 6 in, you know, up to the final game of the season, you know, to me, I'm disappointed, but I accept we are where we are. But we can't let a run like that happen again. And that's why I was really encouraged that the players came out, were professional, thought, okay, we've got to up our game. We're playing a really good team. And they wanted to win, but they weren't good enough. We have to accept that.
I think, again, many will take away from that fact as well, that we demonstrated we could play a bit slightly different. And, you know, I think there's some green shoots there. But I've got to say, you know, Ange is absolutely fuming in his post-match presser. And I want to come over to you, Marlon. He's been saying that ultimately for him, he was really frustrated by the atmosphere. He said it wasn't the usual home game environment. I've just got to deal with that. He was then followed up and pushed a little bit further with regards to his thoughts. And he said that in terms of what he's building at Spurs, the last 48 hours has revealed the foundations are pretty fragile here. He went on to say, and when pushed further again, it's both inside the club and outside the club, which I've always said is quite telling. You know, I've said for a long time on here that I've got a real concern that at the very, very top of the football club, there's a lack of that winning mentality going right from the board and downwards. And I think ultimately, you know, it's quite, I think, you know, ironic. The manager's been here for what, 8-9 months. And I understand that he can't correlate as to the feeling of Spurs fans. He's not been around us for 20, 25 years. We've had Arsenal to some degree that have won trophies, not in their greatest period. But what do you take away from those comments for you? Because that's quite strong to come out there and say inside and outside the club, because he is suggesting as well that it's a mentality that's running right through the football club.
Look, those comments. So the one about being fragile and stuff for the fans tonight. At the end of the day, he sent out that 11. It weren't us that lost that game. It was him and his tactics, right? It's the players that he's got at his disposal and positions they're putting him in, right? So he can't sit there. Look, yeah, the fans have been up and down all season at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's not always been pleasant, but they have just gone on a game, like Russ said, where we've lost like 5 out of the last 6 games, and Burnley was poor, right? Really, really poor, right? So in the sense of how the fans are feeling, there was, you know, it is what it is. But that's down to the football team to bring the fans up, because there was times tonight where we were playing good football and the fans were cheering, right? And when we were getting forward and, you know, when we were close misses, like when Son went through, everyone was quite disappointed. The fans were was like quite disappointed. They weren't changing their way. But as for inside the club, I'm surprised it's taken him this long to realise what everything else is going on inside. It was good. Like, he's been coming out with all these comments and everything like that. But unfortunately, we've seen this for the last 20 odd years with the whole mentality of the club and the way the football club is run and everything like that. He's only been here, coming up 12 months. It's getting to that scary part where it's going to be that 12th to 18th month part when our managers start falling apart. And if he's coming out with those comments already, that's quite worrying for us as a fan base to be like, what is happening? And this is why this summer transfer window is going to be so important to everything that we do. And if Ange is going to last longer than the 18 months. So I can see why he's frustrated, but I've got a feeling at the same time, he's frustrated with the fans tonight, but I think for him to now call out what's going on inside the club, I think that's more damaging going forward. And that's the worrying thing. And like, just to hear that now, I'm kind of, because I'm still in that emotionless way, I don't know how I feel. That is more worrying going forward than whatever result happened tonight.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, TJ coming over to you there. Look, he says, I don't care about the Arsenal chance. I want to win. And, I've got to be honest, at the beginning of the evening, we heard the Arsenal chant, stand up if you hate Arsenal. At the end, we heard both sets of fans, of course, coming together to say, are you watching Arsenal? I think as well with Ange that he's come into a club that, with no disrespect, I mean, even at Celtic, there was a winning heritage there. They were used to winning, whether it be year in, year out, they wouldn't have to wait 20 years for a trophy. Whereas with Tottenham, I think Leah said this so often on here, Macca, we are absolutely craving something that when we see the first wobble, we all wobble as a fan base. And that, I think, is something for the manager, that it's up to that manager, whoever it is, to try and rebuild us and give us the confidence, the hope, the optimism that you can make us heal.
Yeah.
And it's really hard, TJ. I mean, how did you get the balance there? Because I speak to so many people that, you guys are all successful in your own rights. And then you've got a football club that, with no disrespect to the football club, it's disrespectful, I'm going to say, to the football club. There's a real losing mentality there. We should not be in the situation that we are in going into a game where fans are terrified that we have to go in and some feel they've got to lose the game because of our arch rivals. And he's now feeling that as a manager. What's your take on those comments from Ange?
I mean, listen, to Marlon's point, he's not been at the club for very long. However, if anyone who even likes football needs to have rivalry explained to them, I'm at a bit of a loss. I've said on this show before, I never take what Ange says publicly or what any football manager says publicly with too much weight. His boss is listening, remember. And of course, I think all of us know, hand on heart, what does our boss want? Top 4. Every season, top 4. That's what he wants. And Rick, that is a loser's mentality. If your pinnacle is 4th in anything, you are a loser. It's as simple as that. I mean, and so I don't really care what Ange says about that, like what he's saying about, he should be careful about what he says about the fans. But again, I think if we're sensible and of sound body and mind, again, we can read between the lines here. Of course, he doesn't want to lose football matches. He's a professional. But you did lose, and you lost to the best team in the world. And to Marlon's point, you pick the team, and I know you've got injuries and all that kind of thing, but don't turn around and point the fingers at the fans. If I may, again, embark on a little historical journey just for a second. If we remember the 1950 World Cup, when Uruguay stunned Brazil and won 2-1, with their own coach saying to them before the game, he just went, good luck, and walked out knowing that they'd lose. People were literally throwing themselves off the top terrace at the American R to their death, because they lost to a local rival. So that's football rivalry. Now I'll move on from the historical chat. All we're looking for is stability and consistency of next season. Now, what we want from the board, we just lost the greatest player that we ever had, arguably, in my opinion, the greatest player I've ever seen play for Tottenham, including Glenn Hoddle and Gazza, right? What we should have done moving into the season is that Levy should have gone, I'm going to give you 200 million right now. We've just got 100 for him. I'll give you another 100. That's a statement from somebody that wants to win, and it didn't happen. If that doesn't happen over the summer, then I will be looking at the people to blame are right at the top of the club.
To be fair to you, coming around to you if I can, Russ, he's played the PR game so well this season. But I just wonder if that's a bit of a own goal from Ange in terms of not quite understanding why the Spurs fan base didn't want Arsenal to win the game. I mean, that's really hard to instill in someone that doesn't associate themselves with Arsenal fans day in, day out. I mean, has he just kind of misread the room there, do you feel? Or is there more to this?
I think he has. And once you're a manager or a chairman and you start calling out the fans, it's a bit of a slippery slope if you're not careful. So we can only hope that this is a bit of a one-off with Ange. I mean, it's after the heat of battle, he's disappointed, another defeat. And, you know, my advice to him would be keep your head down in the summer. I mean, I don't even think really in public managers should call players out. You do that in private in no uncertain terms. But, you know, it's not just tonight, is it? It's the discussion about set pieces where he just was completely and utterly intransigent. And funnily enough, I think they've done some work on them because we weren't that bad at set pieces.
We're improving. We are improving. Yeah.
So, you know, he might be saying one thing and doing another dangerous thing to do in any profession, let alone football, because I think you have to have a certain amount of honesty. So he's shown a predilection to be quite vocal about what he apparently believes in. And, you know, I'm staggered. As a former Celtic manager, he professes not really to get what some of our fans, not all of them, but some of our fans, and believe me, we're all entitled to our different opinions, aren't we? For him not to understand that, having managed in the hotbed of Glasgow, I find it absolutely baffling, if I'm honest. And, you know, this season he started off really well. We were singing songs about him, and the results and the method of play have not helped. Forget about tonight, but we haven't been good for 3 or 4 months. Now, in his defense, some of the players that he's had to pick are simply not good enough for the sort of football he wants to play, in my opinion. And that's why he's got to get some money off the chairman, which, if we were in the Champions League, would have been, I believe, a little easier than it's going to be in the Europa League. It's like I said on the last show. We don't want to be shopping at the middle in Lidl. We want to be at Selfridges or Harrods at least a couple of times buying big players. And Ange has been very strong. He'll only sign players that want to come to Tottenham Hotspur. He's not interested in players who say, we only really want to play in the Champions League. They've got to want to come and play for us. And we've got to bring in some players who can help us turn this mentality of resignation to ultimate defeat around. Because he is right about that. It must be permeating the club.
Totally
and
agree.
Rick, it permeates the fan base because we're making the same mistakes over and over again. Albert Einstein said it's the definition of madness, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. So we've got to do something different. I hope and I suspect he is the man who can drive that forward, but he needs some help, and he needs help in the form of money. And with a debt-ridden club like we are, sorry to say, lovely stadium, we all know that. The pennies are not going to come easy. He's going to be told, I'm sure he can have the money if he gets rid of X amount of players. We can talk about this forever. I'm going to shut up now before I go mad.
You know what's funny is that, I mean, he's been banging on for months, Ange, about he's not asked about the top 4. The fans showed the same attitude. I started, he's got a problem with it. I mean, you can't make it up. You can't make it up. I mean, it is bonkers. I mean, look, it's hard. Many would say maybe don't read too much into it because he's trying to instill something into the players, the board, and again, the fans. But, he's a professional. He'll ultimately want to win, and he is judged on results. But maybe he's just reaffirming the fact that he needs that clear out. But you know what? I hate to say it, Marlon. We're not coming to another crossroads already, are we? I mean, this is ridiculous. We nearly survived one more game before we get to the manager situation. Here we are. We're going to Australia next week. We can't be in this situation, can we?
No, do you know what? I really hope not. I really hope Ange sits down and thinks about what he's just said, and he kind of people go, maybe you shouldn't have just said that bit about the atmosphere tonight. Because if I look at it like this, right, and there's two games I want to mention earlier this season where we were there, but the team didn't turn up. Fulham away in the cup, Manchester City at home in the cup, right? That's when he can't sit there and say we haven't been there, because the games we needed, we were there. They haven't turned up. So one game tonight ain't gonna throw it all away. But at the same time, look, questions will be asked of Ange, right? As a fan base, we will. But at the same time, I think everyone has got to be on the same journey. And I think Ange has done that with the fan base this season. But it's just we're going through a bad rut, right? And that's the problem at the moment. We are going through a bad rut. And every time Spurs go through a bad rut, the manager gets questioned. But this is the first time I'm going to say is actually, let's stick by this, man, and get Ange to know exactly what us fans want and how things work at this club. And we can go on a journey together. But we just need to get through this bad little period that we're going through at the moment, start next season afresh, right? We've got Europa League football to look forward to as well. So another cup competition that we potentially could make an effort in and go very far in if we play our cards right. So I don't think the manager should be questioned at all at this present moment. And I really hope Ange is not going through the Conte and Jose and not Nuno, but the Pochettino, where they finally get through a point where they ask the club for a significant amount of backing and it doesn't happen. And then the results start turning bad again, and then they get the chop. So hopefully now the board have seen exactly what Ange is trying to do, what type of football he's trying to play. Go get him the right players to do it. As Russ said earlier, right, it needs to fit this system. It needs to fit the Ange way. And then the fans will just jump on board. So, let's get to the next step. So all I'm asking, I get the people that want Ange out at the moment, I get it. I get what they're trying to put to us. But at the same time, I'm like, that's short term. You're not looking at the long-term goal. And it's kind of, let's just take that next step. We all can see what Ange is trying to do. Let's hopefully that the board can see what he's trying to do, and we can all move forward, and we can forget this season. We've had, look, considering where we were last year, right? Let's be honest, we should be slightly happy. Slightly.
I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you, I was ready for a really kind of decent, positive show, and the comments from Ange, I think, has thrown us a little bit. I mean, it's thrown us a little bit off board. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I was going to come in here and say it's been great that we've seen a slight change in the tactics and a new system, and some players have really performed well. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. I mean, that's kind of threw me a little bit, the Ange comments. I didn't really see those coming. I mean, again, we all felt, in the pre-match press, you get it. He wanted to show the integrity to the competition. Totally get that, understand that. I think there is that concern maybe of the misjudgment around, does he understand the rivalry between Arsenal and Tottenham? But look, he's managed in Scotland where Celtic and Rangers, I mean, if anything, that's as much. If not, they'll tell you even more over there. So I do find that bizarre. He closed his presser by saying about changing the mentality around the club and making further changes. But he did say, again, to reiterate that point, it's inside the club, it's outside the club. He's not the first Spurs manager to have done that. And can I just say as well, this is going to sound crazy because, again, we're doing a podcast here, but there's a breaking video at the moment on one of the Spurs aggregators that does show Ange questioning a Tottenham fan at the point of which I believe City have just scored. Look, the man wants to win. He's angry. It's a new environment for him to come into. But like I say, again, this game is so unique in its circumstance that, please God, we will never, ever, 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 ever have to go through this again in terms of the feeling we had going into this. Look, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We're conscious it's a late night show. We're not going to keep you too long. We've got nearly 5,000 of you watching us live. As always, thank you so much for all your incredible support for this show. Just a very quick, brief reminder for those that need reminding that we are delighted, as always, to be sponsored by NordVPN. They've been our long-term partners throughout the season and beyond for the last 3-4 years. And ultimately with Nord, they're a great device and tool if you're looking to maybe save money when it comes to holidays, or you're trying to change location settings in order to, whether it be flights, whether it be for football, streaming services and sports. We've currently got a discount for you right now by going to nordvpn.com/LWS. You get 4 extra months for free on a 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day back money guarantee. I've got to say, look, we're joined by broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams for, in terms of Spurs shows, it's his last one of the season. He's become a regular, and we've loved him for it. Look how happy he's looking. He was happy until the Ange comment.
Well, there is the secret show, Rick, which I don't think you've announced yet.
We've not announced. We've got a secret one coming. We've got a secret one coming. We've got one coming.
Oh, it's been so much fun, I tell you. I mean, well, it's been depressing at times.
Yeah, listen, depending on how tonight could have gone, it could have been a completely different kind of show, but it's gone back to the way I was concerned it might do. Can't make it up. We're joined by actor TJ Ramini, also becoming a regular on Last One on Spurs, and we've loved him for it. And Marlon, the new man in the building, and we love Marlon's views on Last One on Spurs. Lovely to have him on the show as well. Look, guys, I've got to be honest here. Crazy feeling going into the game. Look, we'll bring you more Ange comments if they do come through, but I have to urge and remind you, Europa League final in San Mamés next season. We will be there. Everyone get ready to go to Bilbao and party in the sunshine, and Spurs end the trophy drought, please God. Right, we're going to come on to the team for this one, for the game, if we can. Look, Spurs, they made 3 changes to their 11 ahead of the game. Of course, we found out that Yves Bissouma was going to be missing for those final 2 games of the season, along with Richarlison. So Spurs boss Ange Postecoglou opted to start with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg replacing Bentancur in the centre of the park. And at the same time, we saw Bentancur actually coming in for Dejan Kulusevski, with James Maddison presumably at the time we thought moving into more of an advanced role to leave Pat Matasar to make up the midfield trio. The Australian decided against starting on a skip at left back and instead pushed Mickey van der Ven across with Radu Dragusin coming into the defence. It was a new system deployed by Ange Postecoglou, and young midfielder Tyrese Hall was on the bench for the first time. So that team read Vicario Porro Romero, Dragusin van der Ven Bentancur, Højbjerg, Sarr, Johnson, Son, Maddison, with a bench of Austin, Emerson, Skip, Hall, Lo Celso, Moore, Kulusevski, Hill, Scarlett. Marlon, when that team came out, what was your thoughts on it for you?
When I saw it, my only disappointment in that whole team was I wanted Scarlett to start, if I'm being honest. I thought Son was going to play up front and I thought Maddison was going to play off the left. But actually, when you saw it all play down in real time, I was like, oh, okay, we're not playing with a striker. And I just feel like this was the perfect game to try a youngster in it, who's a striker, to see if he's going to have a future at this club as well. But apart from that, everyone was exactly how I expected it. I thought the back four was exactly what I've been screaming for weeks. Højbjerg was inevitable. I thought he was going to sit in front, and I thought he played really well in that first half. And Bentancur as well. Like, actually, looking at it, the whole team did work, and even Sarr with his energy. I thought Maddison was okay-ish, wasn't his best, but then he had no one behind him, and he only had Sarr to aim at. But most of that was exactly what I expected, but I would have probably swapped Sarr out for Scarlett. That would probably be my only change.
Yeah, you know, I think, again, many felt it was nice to be a bit of a change up from Spurs in terms of the lineup. And you know what? It sounds crazy saying this, because bearing in mind how our first halves have been at Spurs, we started really, really well. I mean, we absolutely flew out the box. We almost took the lead. Lovely move up the pitch. Højbjerg, ball into Johnson, who teed up Bentancur, but Ederson tipped over his shot. And then at the other end, we did see a terrific save from Vicario to deny Foden's close range volley after a horrible Højbjerg slice into City's man's path. I mean, many thought Højbjerg got the memo at one point, and many were arguing that Bissouma was wearing the memo on the Spurs bench in his, as you saw, sky blue hoodie at the time. Michael Richards said Vicario stopped Foden with one of the best saves that he's seen all season. And to be fair, look, it comes to a point where half hour gone, that was the longest Tottenham had gone without conceding a goal in 10 games, which it tells you just all about Spurs defensively, what they've been like, really. And it has been one of those crazy seasons in terms of the nature of Spurs conceding goals. And look, although it would have been ruled off for offside, there was a big moment for Radu Dragusin, who made a great header off the line from Silva's shot, and he celebrated it like a goal. I'm not sure what some fans were feeling at that point when he did that moment, but look, it was a great moment for him personally, although it was obviously ruled out for offside. And I mean, look, the first half in general, I think many felt, as TJ touched upon there, where TJ has this Tottenham been? You know, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, Brighton. And, you know, for only the third time in 2024, Tottenham hadn't conceded a first half goal. Staggering, right?
Isn't it? Absolutely extraordinary. I mean, I was listening to what you were just saying, Rick, and I was just baffled beyond belief at so many of the stats. I must say as well, the most startling stat that I've heard all day is that Marlon was 15 in 1999, looking absolutely fantastic, my friend. More power to you. And for those of you who are watching actually and concurring, yes, Marlon does look fabulous. Please hit the like button. Right, if you're watching it, you like the show, hit the like button, man. Like throw Ricky some love, man. Anyway, so yeah, listen, I think there were lots of positives today. I totally agree as well with Marlon. Like, you kind of have not unprecedented necessarily, but an extremely rare scenario. We can actually, let's try this kid. Let's throw Dane Scarlett in. Let's try him against the best team in the world, playing in an unorthodox game because of so much of the fan base actually wanting to lose. So you're certainly playing with far less expectation on your young shoulders. It was a golden opportunity for him to be played in that number 9 position, so often a cursed position for Tottenham players. Give the kid a go or get rid of him. Like, what are we doing? He ain't that young anymore. Like, you know, what are we doing with this boy? So that was a squandered opportunity, I thought. There were loads of positives. I thought Johnson was really good today. What I like about Johnson as well, since coming to Tottenham, and listen, man, he isn't the completed player. People who get on his back, you know, he's only 15 minutes old and he's come for big money to a big club. You know, let's give the boy a chance. But what I really like that he's added to his game is he really has some fire. You know, he's really quite combative, and he has a never say die attitude. I mean, he was the one who won that ball to put Sonny through in you know, at the 80th minute or whatever it is, and he went clattering into I think it was a Kanji to win that ball to Sonny. So I really like that about Johnson. I enjoyed Sarr's energy as well on the left. And yeah, I agree, man. I thought Højbjerg had an excellent game. Other than he loves a shank off a shin, doesn't he? He loves it. He's good. I'll give you one per game. Here we go. I put the butter on my shin pads. Here we go. And shank. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Good save, Vicario. I dropped you in it there again. But, you know, he was excellent today, man, Vicario. And again, Dragusin, right? He had some dodgy passes here and there, but there's definitely a player there. And listen, man, Van der Ven, it seems you can play this kid anywhere. And he's going to have a 10 performance. Just unbelievable. No, Rick? I mean, geez, what a player.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, look, man, again, we've been saying this all episode. It was an odd game to watch, and we're all feeling, you know, a little bit conflicted. But there were so many positives to take forward into next season. I also thought Lo Celso looked really good when he came on. Looked really, really good. I mean, yeah, you know, we were 2-0 down. I mean, listen, he's playing with my emotions. He loves that. He loves that. Absolutely. Wasn't he? It's so flattering to deceive. He's such a flirt, isn't he? He's like, you know, he's like that terrible.
This is what you could have had. This is what you could have had. She'll be gone.
You know, she's probably at the pub chatting to your friends like you. She didn't call when she said she was going to call, and then you know she'll walk through the door with a bottle of wine and give you a big kiss. You'll be like, oh God, you know, maybe this is going to work out. You know, yeah, man, there was lots that I enjoyed about today. And again, a lot of things for us to feel positive about. Don't read too much into what Ange has said, guys. Like, you know, we gotta stick together and love each other, right? Our fan base, man, we got to do that. So he's an ultra competitive person who wants to win everything. Let's not be too judgmental when he is in the throes of passion and he's saying things in a reaction manner. Let's give him a little bit of.
He's in a position of responsibility, though.
Agreed, brother. Agreed.
So when you're in that, you've got to be careful. I think.
I totally agree, man. I mean, and he's a big boy, right? He's a grown man.
He's a very big boy,
and he should and he should know better. But he's not done the Premier League yet. You know, in Scotland, let's be honest. You and I could go in there, send a few texts to the players, and win it every season. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll send him one from the beach. 4-4-2.
I'm not sure I could.
Good job, lads. Come on, you whatever you are called, green and whites. You know, to come and collect your medal.
You know what? I mean, just on this point, because I know many are alluding to this as we're recording it here. And again, for listeners on audio, they might understand the concept we're bringing this in now. I did say, obviously, throughout the show, if we get anything more on Ange, I will bring it in.
Yeah.
The video of the exchange of Ange and a fan, he said, what side are you supporting? I mean, to be fair, it was that kind of crazy night that honestly, I mean, Russ, like I keep on saying, I sort of keep saying this, guys, hopefully we're never in this situation again, Russ. I mean, we can't be right because it's really unique. It's a one-off, right? It's a one-off. It has to be a one-off. Tell me it's a one-off, Russ. It's not going to happen again, is it? It won't happen again.
No, it won't happen again, Rick. Don't worry, mate. You won't be turning grey anytime soon. Promise you. Okay. For me, the pressing was good. The pressing was back. You know, I liked the way he set up the defence. There was quite a lot to take out of the game looking forward to next season, and even Sheffield United, of course. So it's our final game. It's a big game. We could do with getting the 3 points. We'd be certain the fifth then. Of course, we might be certain tomorrow night when Manchester United and Newcastle play, depending on how that goes. There was enough for me to be encouraged about, but we all know it comes down now to who's out the door, who's coming in, and how we do next season. And we're in Europe, so there's just got to be changes, and quite a lot. I'm sorry to harp on about it, but it's so bloody obvious to me.
No, of course,
and probably most of us. We just can't go on with the same squad of players that we've got. Ange has had 2 transfer windows, Van de Ven and Maddison in his first one. Werner coming in, he's a conundrum. Does he stay or does he go? 15 million quid. There's an argument that he might, for what he is, an international, we keep him. Other fans are not convinced and say we can do a lot better than that. All of these things have got to be sorted out. But with Ange in the mood that he was in after the game, Daniel Levy better watch out, because he's coming into your office, mate. He'll have you arms behind the back. Give me the money, mate.
Russ would have been asking for that authentication for years to come. Maybe Daniel's waiting. No disrespect to Daniel. May have been waiting for this. I mean, look.
But it's interesting. Sorry, Rick. Just one final thought. Isn't it interesting that Conte said the same? Mourinho has alluded to similar things. So this is like a stick of Tottenham Rock, and whatever is in the middle isn't Tottenham Hotspur. It's something else, and it is a problem. Yeah.
Again, it's a crazy night, and I keep on saying it. I apologize for saying how crazy the night is, but it really, really is. What I do want to bring into play, if I can, is just some of the comments that Pep Guardiola said after the game. And he said, come around to you, Marlon, look, on Tottenham, they're an exceptional team. Exceptional, that was not sexy. They're an exceptional team. They might be a bit sexy. Physical, intense, well managed, good with and without the ball. We knew it was going to be difficult, but in the bad moments, we were there, and our keepers do the job. And at the end, in the right moment, we punish them. He went on to finally say on Ange Postecoglou, and I've got to really bring this into, again, focus, that ultimately Spurs will, in the future, be unbelievable if they stick with this manager.
Well, kind of what I just said before. He's kind of, me and Pep are on the same page. The thing is, though, right? Yeah, he will be exceptional for us. It's going back to Russ's point again. It's only going to be exceptional if you can go and get him what he needs. You can't give him half-hearted tools, otherwise he's going to produce exactly what Conte did. He's going to produce what Mourinho did, and Poch what he did when he was trying to do the rebuild. And that's the biggest issue right now, is that if they don't fully, like TJ said earlier, we can't do it half-hearted, right? We can't, the Kane money went, right? And it should have been back then. You've had a year with this man in the position. Go and fully give him what he deserves, right? High risk, high reward, do it in the transfer market. I think I've said that before, but that's exactly how we got to be this summer, right? Because if we don't, and we're not on board with this manager, it's just going to end up in the exact same way. And I think that's why a lot of people have been turning on Ange as well, especially with the games that, we've been losing. Everyone's seeing repeat patterns, and that's the biggest problem right now. It's always repeat patterns, right? And there's only 2 things that have been consistent over these last 23 years with those consistent patterns. It's either us fans or it's the board. So you have to ask questions of one or the other, because the players have changed, the managers have changed, but everything else is exactly, there's only 2 things that have remained the same. So those are the questions that we have to ask going forward, right? Because Ange is probably looking at it tonight going, well, if the fans have this mentality, maybe it's not the board, but if the board have this mentality, the fans are going to eventually get the mentality exactly the same. And that's why we've been put in this situation tonight, because of everything that's happened over the last how many years. So everybody, like I said, has got to be on the same page next season, and that includes the board. And if everyone can get on that page, next season will be a fruitful season for us. And we have got to stick with him. I know things look bad at the moment, but we've got to stick with him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that game will give many, hope, optimism that they saw a lot of green shoots there, that if Spurs follow through with how they've played in that game, and we see that more consistently, those doubts will hopefully go away. Of course, we've had this situation now where obviously Ange has come out and said what he said, but just to also qualify on that as well, Ange did say that, look, I already know what I want to do. It's just I've got to make some adjustments to how I do it, which again, it's whether he's allowed that opportunity to do it his way, where, as we know, to go back to it, certain other managers haven't been allowed to do it their way. Will Ange be allowed that? We shall see. Look, in terms of second half, don't want to drag it out too much in terms of the game incident, because I think the press conference has almost overtaken the game in itself, which has been the nature of Tottenham with previous managers. Don't get me wrong, it's always been that way. But look, we saw flying same from Vicario early on to deny De Bruyne. And to be fair, Vicario, from a shot-stopping perspective, he had a really good night for Tottenham. I know he's been criticised recently in terms of his handling, but you can't argue the fact he made some really good saves in that game. But look, Haaland did open the scoring for Manchester City. 37th goal of the season. De Bruyne got in down the right, found the City number 9 for a trademark close finish. It did spark big celebrations from City. And then, again, for fair balance, I have to report this. Spurs fans broke out into chants of effing hate Arsenal, the same way they started the game. And then following, are you watching Arsenal? Are you watching Arsenal? Being belted out by a lot of the South Stand. It's at that point we understand where Ange had a confrontation with a fan in which he turned around to the fan and said, what side are you supporting? I mean, I'm not going to say it. I think many know beforehand there was reports that ultimately it wasn't just Spurs fans that were in the ground in the game. Make of that what you will in terms of who bought tickets on the night. But it was a really subdued atmosphere, like many of the TV outlets have picked up on as well. Kulusevski replaced Bentancur, who, to be fair, had been really good, but was hampered by a yellow card, especially in chasing Foden in the build-up to the goal. And just on this point, Bentancur absolutely furious, TJ. He shook hands with Postecoglou, but he then started to kick his own dugout seat repeatedly with studs mark galore. He then hurled a water bottle at the ground. Plenty of passion. Maybe frustrated that also he couldn't intervene for the goal Spurs conceded. Is that how you saw it, or is there anything more sinister to that for you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love Bentancur, right? We've spoken so often about him. Rick, you and I as well have swapped a million messages about Bentancur, and I think he's an essential part of what it is that we're going to try to achieve moving forward. I think he's a silky player, an elegant player. He's got 2 feet. Remember that save that Edison made from his strike on the edge of the box? That was with his left foot. He's such a wonderful player. Russ was talking about how he will never forgive Matty Cash, and none of us ever will. I think a fully fit, full pre-season Bentancur is going to come back and be just like a rod of lightning through that central midfield for us. I think he's an exceptional player, and I love his passion. And again, I've spoken about Uruguay already this evening. Here's a country of 3.5 million people that have won the World Cup twice, once beating Argentina and once beating Brazil. So I love that guy, and I love that level of passion. There's captain material in there. And again, once he's fit, we were discussing on the last show what a transformative season Romero has had, not just physically, but also mentally. Another excellent game from him today, by the way. Yes, he could have done a little bit better against Phil Foden, but it's Phil Foden, who for me is the best player in the country at the moment. And so I never have a problem with a player showing that level of commitment and irritation having been taken off. I think a lot of that does come down to the season is coming to an end, and he feels like he had a lot more to offer, and so much of that was taken away from him very cruelly through injuries. So I have no problem with that at all, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, look, just after that, and you talk about Romero, an incident that happened, a collision between Romero and Edison as the Argentine tried to switch to read a ball into the box. Looked a painful one for the keeper. Romero immediately stays with the City goalkeeper, who remained on the floor and clearly in a lot of pain. Edison actually had to come off, but he wasn't happy either, the Brazilian goalkeeper. He clearly wanted to stay on, but as we know now, with kind of head collisions, should never take the risk. I mean, Russ, for you, was that just a unfortunate coming together? And as I said about Bentancur not being sinister, was that for you? Nothing really sinister there. That's unfortunate coming together.
Yeah, I think Bentancur was absolute frustration. And I think Romero, he got the yellow card, didn't he, for a reckless tackle. VAR looked at it, but on the coverage I watched on the television, they wouldn't show it again. Because Edison was down and looked almost out, and the doctors were around him and the stretcher was there, what have you. But the ball in was brilliant from Kulusevski, the sort of ball that we've been missing from him for quite a few weeks. So that was another good thing to see. Yeah, for me, I think a yellow card was fair. And he's, as we said on the last show, I mean, he's transformed his sort of cardology in the professional game, isn't he? From almost a guaranteed red to very occasional yellow now, and shows such passion for the club. I hope that he does stick around and become part of what we all hope is going to be an exciting future under Ange.
Yeah, totally agree on that. I mean, look, John, one player that looked absolutely possessed on the night, Marlon, was Dejan Kulusevski. I know many were sharing online the fact that he stood outside the Henry statue, which was sickening to see pictures of, but he looked like a man possessed. If anyone was going to get us back into that game, it was going to be Dejan Kulusevski. He was close to 11 in the scoring. His shot bounced between the legs of Ortega, but the keeper managed to save. He had another opportunity late on as well. Was that back to the Kulusevski that we obviously all fell in love with? We know the fact that he was daring, he was almost trying to make things happen, whereas in previous games, hadn't looked like that been the case, Marlon.
No, it was watching him was like watching the Kulusevski we signed under Conte, and that was the weirdest thing to see. And he possibly had the two best chances in that second half as well. The one where the keeper saves it, where he's 1-on-1. I'm thinking he puts that in. I was just literally. I think if Ederson was in goal, I think it goes through Ederson's legs because of the way they are separately as a keeper. But he did look like a man possessed. Not sure if he was trying to play to get in Pep's plans and maybe Pep signs him next season. Something like that was going through his head. But no, it was good to see. The problem is it's too inconsistent with him. And that we have seen it parts this season where he has played well. Like I remember Nottingham Forest away where he played really well and put the right balls in. But then he'll go the week after and he will make the wrong passes. So, but yeah, no, he seemed like he was trying. Like if there was any Arsenal fan watching tonight and saw that performance, they could not sit there and say our players did not try. Not one of them. They all sat there and it probably gave more. I would probably say more tonight than they have done in the last few weeks.
Totally agree.
And we, like, for us, I think a lot of us came out after the game, and as I said, this is why it's weird for us, because we looked at it and went, we probably should have won that. And we probably should have taken our chances and the chances we did have and everything like that. And just to go back on your Bentancur question earlier, I think the problem why he was a bit like he was tonight was, if you've noticed, when he does start, right, he keeps coming off at the same time, like the 60th minute. And I thought he played really well tonight, that it probably could have lasted a bit longer. But it's kind of like with the Lo Celso situation. Lo Celso seems to be only coming on the 85th minute. So it's a bit of a weird conundrum. I think that's where Bentancur's getting a bit frustrated at the moment, because he's like, when he does start, he's only getting up to a certain amount of time. And I don't know if that's Ange trying to ease him back in after his injury or not. But it just seems to be weird, because I thought he was excellent on the ball tonight. He was good going forward and he looked dangerous. He looked like he was up for it. And I think that's where probably the frustration came from when he got substituted, because if it was him or Højbjerg, I'd have probably gone for Højbjerg first to come off, because I thought, as you said earlier, Højbjerg sliced it and was trying to give Foden the chance, and he wasn't as good as Bentancur, but that was just my opinion on the game. But I also
think it's worth mentioning, Marlon, like talking about Bentancur and also talking about Maddison and Kulu, discussing those kind of players who play right behind a nine. It's really important as well for people to remember and realise, and we've talked about this before, that we don't have a number 9. We don't have one. And so I think that we have to temper our criticism and our expectation of players like Lolo, Maddison, of Kulusevski, Johnson. We don't have a number 9. And so does that change? Does that transform if we do go and spend 40 or 50 million and bring in somebody like Ivan Toney? Does that unlock the true potential of somebody like,
this is the great question.
Maddison, whoever, Johnson, Sonny, even, like, if you have, the telepathic understanding between Harry Kane and Heung-min Son is literally the most successful combination in the history of the Premier League.
Yeah.
And so by having this talismanic number 9 who actually knows that position, do we then see the true potential of those players? Because I agree with you, brother. I think he's a very, very special player. And I think that's part of his frustration. He has that final pass, but who do I pass it to?
This is such a great question.
But I thought that was
that's exactly the point I was trying to make. And like TJ, you put it better than I could have.
I've got to ask you guys a quick one here, just on Sonny. Sonny goes through 1-on-1. It's a chance to bring Spurs level. If that goal goes in, Russ, is there any chance he's risking his legacy with Tottenham in regards to the game and the magnitude of it? Take away, just a one-off game, but what it would have meant in consequence if Sonny scores.
Maybe to some people, not to me. But it was funny when he was through 1-on-1. I was thinking, Sonny, 6 months, 9 months ago would have scored that, and recent form, he really has been off the pace, really, for his ability. And so it didn't surprise me. But, Ortega made a really good save. He made about 3, didn't he? To be fair to him. So the goalkeeper made himself big and, some would say he got lucky, but he didn't score. And I don't think it would have affected his legacy. People would have remembered that was one of the things that a lot of people weren't happy about if he had scored, but he didn't. So we don't need to worry, Rick.
You're right. We don't need to worry. We don't. I mean, look, it was inconsequential in the end because at that point, Jamie Carragher said Arsenal fans all over the world would have been 2 foot in their televisions had Sonny put it in the back of the net. But look, again, a really close moment for Spurs. Johnson pressed the Kanji really well. And again, we mentioned that point with Sonny there. But City did put the game beyond doubt. Pedro Porro giving away a pen. Haaland smashing it in to the roof of the net. It sparked massive celebrations in the away end, but a lovely moment for Tottenham towards the end of that game. Mikey Moore on for his full Spurs debut. I'm sure for that lad, for him, a moment he will never forget. Great one for the 16-year-old. He got an enormous cheer from the home fans as he came on for James Maddison wearing the number 59 shirt. Actually, a lovely touch from Ange. And again, I know he was absolutely fuming of the way the night panned out, but it was a lovely moment. And, again, to make that clear in terms of how that game ended for reporting purposes, both Spurs and Man City fans came together to sing, "Are You Watching Arsenal?" That is how that game ended. Guys, I want to end, if I can, on this comment from Ange. I want to get the kind of summary as to where you guys feel we are for the future. We're trying to make it conscious of time. We've got 6,000 of you watching us live. We can't thank you enough for all your incredible support for the show. Honestly, genuinely, thank you so much. Ange said, to summarise on all of his comments, maybe I'm out of step, but I just want to win. I want to be successful at this football club. It's why I was brought in. So what other people and what their other priorities are of zero interest to me. I know what's important to build a winning team. That's what I need to concentrate on. Now, TJ, we've come off the back of a performance where, as I've said, I think we've seen some really positive elements of Tottenham where we've seen a bit of tweaking. We've seen a new system. We've seen a bit of adaptation from Ange. How important is it for fans that maybe when they're watching, listening to Last Word on Spurs and they've heard me speak about his comments in regards to there being a mentality issue inside, outside the club? There's been a confrontation with a fan, question if he is a Spurs fan. How important is it to find the perspective, look at the long-term picture and still feel this is the right man to lead us? Because when I hear him speak, I can't help but be inspired. I can't lie. Yes, I've got my concerns over some of the tactical elements, but tonight was a step forward for me. How do you feel?
Yeah, totally, man. This whole season, brother, was a massive step forward. To jump 3 positions from where we were last season, massive step forward. Yes, there are worrying inconsistencies, set pieces. We conceded 61 goals. We lost, 5-6 games on the bounce, things like that. Sure, these are all worrying, justifiably. And Tottenham fans have every right to throw their hands up and say, we want better, because we do want better. To your point, we've been starved for decades. We're absolutely ravenous. The famous Eddie Murphy sketch. He's ravenous. Somebody throw me a saltine cracker. Give me something. But again, I've got no problem with the manager of this football club being so ultra competitive, being so adamant that all he wants to do is win, no matter what that means to our rivals. I love that kind of attitude. And again, I'm not going to judge the man too harshly because he does understand football rivalry, right? But he has to kind of say what he says and what he believes in his heart, and what he wants to do is win. There was a quote that he was talking about when he walks down the corridors. You don't see any posters of us kind of sticking it to Arsenal, but we want to stick it to Arsenal. That is very important to us. All I want to do, like Ange, is look forward. The season is done. We finish where we finished, and I think it's a fair reflection of how we've fared this season. So all I want to do, like our manager, is look forward. What I really, really appreciate and admire about those comments was it was not subtle pressure on the owners. It was quite direct pressure. Give me what I need and I will show you what I can do with this football club. And then lastly, before I leave, I really enjoyed Pep's comments when he was talking about how it's outrageous, and I totally agree with him, very disrespectful to say that he has achieved what he achieved just because of money, when he has been outspent by Manchester United regularly, by Chelsea regularly, and by Arsenal regularly. And he has built the best team, arguably, the Premier League has ever seen. So it's not just about money, it's about philosophy, it's about culture, it's about belief, and it's about a winning mentality. And if Ange can bring that to the board, to the club, to the players, to the fans, then the future is bright. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, boys. Lovely to see you all. Thank you to the viewers. Thank you to the listeners. We shall see you soon. Sending love to you all. Thank you.
TJ, you're an absolute star, my man. I'm conscious. I'm going to go to Marlon and close with Russ. TJ, are you with us, or have you got to shoot? What's your situation?
I'm with you. Thank you.
You're with us. Amazing. Listen, I'm going to close it on something very special in a second. Marlon, I want to come to you. Look, friend of the show, Paul O'Keefe. I think this is really important that I put this out there, and I'm sure Paul won't mind me reiterating what he's actually said on X, that Ange wants to be in a position where what we do is all about us and us achieving, not about others. He wants to surpass them, and personally, he has to have that mentality as the manager. If you don't, then you don't want him. And I think what's interesting is that if you look at his career, he has walked away, I think, from the Australian job where at a time, I think they were just about to take a tournament and he walked away. So he's a man of real principles and ultimate guidelines to his own book, that if he's not being followed or trusted or given the responsibility, he will go, whether it's Tottenham, whether it's Brisbane Roar, whether it's Yokohama. If you see where I'm coming from here, if the man is not given the tools to do the job, I don't think he'll be here. And maybe, again, this is another message on this point here, Marlon, that really this will show us really where the board's ambition is going to be in these next few months, right? The man is going to want to be backed. Let's see how they back him.
No, it's spot on. And like Pep says, we've got to stick with this man. And do you know what? Just go on what TJ said. It's not about money. It's not about money at all. When we say back him, we don't go and spend 50, 60 million on players like Ndombele and players that don't work out. No, this is about backing the manager and giving him the players what he needs. If he needs a 20 million pound player in that position, 10 million, we're fine with that. You know, Akanji only cost Man City 15 million, right? These are the sort of players that I know Pep went and backed his whole defense and kept changing it over till he got the right one when he signed Cole Walker and, you know, the Mendy's and Sinchenkos of this world. But at the same time, what we're trying to say is when we say back him, it's not about being big and going. It is about getting the right players for the right positions for this and for this system to work and for Ange to work. And as long as we can do that this summer, because I think we can all see it with the positions that are basically badly needed, right? Which is the front three and probably that what we call the DM number 6. Those are the 4 positions that are really key this summer, right? Because then, as you saw tonight, we can defend in certain periods of the game. You know, we didn't concede a goal in the first half. Drake Machine came in and improved what we had. And like you said earlier, Rick, it was a great moment for him. And actually, I was with him when he celebrated blocking that thing because he needed that. He needed that for his confidence. It's only going to benefit Spurs. And anything I saw that benefited Spurs tonight, I was happy for. But as you said there, let's get Ange the players he needs for next season, and let's go on a journey. Let's, like we did with Poch, let's get on to the next journey, and let's get behind this man. And I just kind of feel like a lot of people have lost sight of that in the last couple of weeks. But let's do it. Ange is the right man for Spurs, and let's not make him walk out like all the other managers have been unsuccessful with us.
That's absolutely fair. I mean, look, Russ, I want to close with you because I think, again, I want to go back to what we said at the start of the show, and I don't want it to be kind of lost, that we saw some really good glimpses of maybe Spurs showing a bit of adaptation, a bit of tweaking, a new system that the players were ultimately sticking to in large periods of that game. We've discussed, obviously, on the show, the concerns around the set pieces, the form that you've touched upon as well, the fact that I think it is now 4 defeats out of the last 5. And again, that comes on the back of these comments that we've had. How important is this now that everyone doesn't lose their head, they stay calm, they stay to the plan, they stick to the script, and ultimately back this manager? Because in the words of Pep Guardiola, And look, Pep Guardiola, for what he's going to do, he looks like he's about to win a 4th title, unprecedented in a row in the Premier League. You'd like to think he knows when he's spotted a decent manager. How important is it that we give him the opportunity and back him? And as you said earlier, it's 6 managers that we've seen off and not had a full season.
Yeah, I mean, look, when Conte left, we were kind of rock bottom as a football club. I compare it to a serious illness. We've been sick for a long while. And now, we were hoping from the start of the season the recovery was going to be swift and fairly painless. It rarely is, as people will know in the real world when they're not well, or family members or partners and what have you. There's a journey to go on. So I'm trying to equate it that way. And I think what Marlon and TJ have said is absolutely right. The only thing I would say is the caveat is that we have been pulverized by teams this season too many times. And if he gets to the end of October and into November and the same run of 4 or 5 defeats on the bounce happens again, it's going to be a really difficult time for him. And I don't want to be sitting here, and I'm sure all the viewers and listeners do not want to be taking part as they do so brilliantly on the last word at Spurs or on Spurs, sorry, Rick, and talking about, oh, well, there's another manager gone, trigger happy chairman, relations have gone sour and all that kind of stuff. He's laid out a little bit tonight how he feels about things, how he thinks about the future. He has got a plan. And, if we don't trust him, who are we going to trust? Some other Tom, Dick and Harry? There'll always be somebody who'll come in and manage the club.
Yeah.
But this fella's, I think he's got something, although he's gone through a difficult time. And I think he's just feeling the pressure a little bit. And he's disappointed that we've lost another football match and it's been a bad run. That's all.
Yeah. And look, one thing I won't ever one thing I'll never criticise a manager for is, being upset and not winning. I mean, that's what we want at the football club. And you can argue maybe that's maybe half the problem, that we haven't had enough people like that don't feel the pain of not winning. So look, guys, we are going to leave it there. It's been a really weird, strange episode of Last Word on Spurs. But if I can, guys, and please forgive me, I want to pay homage to not only the viewers and listeners that join this show every single week, and they've been with us for 6-7 years, but some of the wonderful guests that have made this show what it has become, definitely over the last year or so, and taken it to new dizzy heights. I want to say a massive thank you. Russ, mate, firstly with you. You've become a regular on here that people love, and they tell me it's the voice of honey being poured down their throat. Crackers, a.k.a. I can't nick their lines. But, mate, I want to say a massive thank you for your dedication this season with us. You've turned up in difficult games. We had some nice games at the start, but, mate, I can't thank you enough. It's been lovely having you with us, and we look forward to many more to come, fingers crossed.
Ricky, I mean, it was a pleasure to be asked to come on this season a bit more, and to the viewers, whether you agree with me or not, and some do and some don't. And that's the great thing about being a football fan. It's honestly been an honour, and to see the way that you've grown this show and the channel and the way that you're expanding is absolutely brilliant. You can go to the stars and back with this, because you're out there. You are the leader, the dear leader, as I used to call you at the start of the season, little doff of the hat to Kim Jong-un of football. Although you're a lot better looking, I have to say, Ricky.
I don't know about that. I feel I've aged 20 years, but bless you.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
Thank you for asking me on. I love working with all the guys and girls on the panel. And I just hope next season, maybe. Maybe. But rest easy. We've won nothing, and they're not going to either.
I love you, Russ Williams. I love you, Russ Williams, I tell you. And, I have to echo those thoughts to TJ as well. He's become a regular face on here on Last Word on Spurs. I can't help but laugh that, and TJ, don't take this the wrong way, and please be humble what I'm going to say here. This man's in a lot of different things, doing a lot of things in his life. And I got a voice note around, it was 3 a.m. my time. I hope TJ won't mind me saying this, that I think he was down maybe the beach or walking somewhere. He went, Rick, someone has just stopped me and said, I'm watching you on Last Word on Spurs. And I'm thinking, this show, where is this going now? It's going all around the world, which is, again, credit
I was walking the dog here in Santa Monica, and I was talking to this woman who'd just seen me on, I think it was NCIS Los Angeles or something. She'd just seen me on that. English woman. say, "Oh, we were watching you, and we used to watch you back in England, and we saw you on the show." I was like, "Oh, right." And then the gentleman came out, her husband, and she said, "Oh, look, I'm speaking to the," and he went, "Oh, from the Last Word on Spurs." And I said, "Yes," and he went, "Oh yeah, I watched the show all the time. It was brilliant." So it was a really funny story. But to echo Russ's sentiments, man, it's thoroughly deserved, Rick. You captain the ship with great style and flair, and with grace and with integrity, man, and balance. And you always choose such fantastic guests. Marlon, it was a pleasure to meet you this year, brother. You know, Rick, whoever you bring in, they're always the right flavor for the show. And it's no wonder that you have such loyal fans, such loyal listeners and viewers. Again, I'm going to remind them to hit like buttons and things like that if you are watching or listening to the show. Listen, I have to love you and leave you. I do have to go. But thank you for another wonderful season. Hopefully, we shall have yet more winning episodes to report on next season. So lots of love. Big love to all the Tottenham fans out there. I know it's a rocky road, but we'll stick together and we'll make something happen. Love to you all.
Bravo. Bravo.
You've been a massive part of it, mate. I can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. And we're going to close on Marlon. Marlon, mate, you're at the start of your last one on Spurs journey. He hasn't aged just yet, bless him. But, mate, I want to say a massive thank you. You've again become, you and Ash, bless you, the two of you, becoming regular prominent features on here. So I want to say a massive thank you. And just to give you an opportunity, where can people find more of what you do? Because, like I say, we've loved having you on in these last 3 months.
Yeah, so you can find us on X or YouTube at Spurs Kings TV, as it says in the title. But Ricky, me and Ash have got to thank you. You reached out to us, and you've just given us an opportunity that we can't thank you more. You know, because without you and this channel at the moment, we've grown so much in the last couple of weeks as well. And everyone who's watches this as well has been giving us positive comments and been seeing us on this show and been like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you two are on Last Word on Spurs." So thank you so much for asking both of us to be part of this. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm going to speak for Ash, but we're both so happy that you and hopefully there's more to come.
Bless you. There will be more to come. And a reminder, go and check Russ out. And look, just to be clear, the man does do Monday to Fridays, all right? Don't let me tell you otherwise. It's Monday to Friday. It's Nation Radio. It's the wonderful Russ Williams. Guys, we're going to leave you with that. Russ, thank you. Marlon, thank you. Love to TJ. Love to you all listening and watching right now. We'll be back with you for Sheffield United on the final day of the season. From myself, from Marlon, from Russ, from TJ. We've been the last one on Spurs. Keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.